Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot. It is September 6th, and I'm delighted that you're taking a few minutes to join me. So, the last couple of readings for sure, I have been talking a lot about sort of female energy and how female energy is going to ultimately end up being kind of the downfall of Trump. And one of my viewers, whose name I don't remember, I'm sorry, asked an interesting question. And she said, it would be interesting to know sort of what the women in Trump's life who have been in his life think about what's going on with him now. And how, what their perspective is and what they do or don't understand about his behaviors. So I thought that was sort of fascinating. So we're going to start with his mom. And I think we're going to move on to Ivana and possibly Marla. And we're going to and maybe his sister, we'll see. I don't think that she plays that big a role in his thought processes. But anyway, so that's what we're going to do. So I have a question. Come on down and let's get to it. All right, so we're focusing in on Trump and the females of his life. Trump and the important females in his life. Okay, so we're starting with Mary. Interesting. Okay. So, in many ways, Mary was, I think his mom's name was Mary, was the driving force behind his father. Okay, she was the one who really harnessed that ambition and propelled it forward. She had some very, very old-fashioned ideas and attitudes about a wife's place, a mother's role, and those beliefs and attitudes absolutely influenced the way she raised her children. So the sons were taught to be strong and, head of the household. And the women, I believe there's one sister, there could be more, were sort of taught to, it's an interesting dichotomy there because they were taught to use their brains and they were taught to get a good education and be smart and be successful. But even with all of that, they needed to know their place and tend to their husband and their family. So it was like that you can be as successful as you want between 9 and 5, but all the other hours, you better be taking care of the home fires. There was a lot that went on sort of in that household that didn't get talked about, right? It wasn't so much secrets as much as it was just taboo topics, things that were not discussed. Just as simple as that. And there was a great deal of judgment in the way they were raised. There was a lot of living up to expectations, being the best that they could be, creating the environment that they wanted to live in. And frankly, when Donald Trump got to those ages and stages where he was difficult, which from what I gather was, just shortly after he was born, they sort of tried to they tried to embarrass him into behavior. They sort of there was a little bit of, spare the rod, spoil the child kind of attitude in that house. So there was some of that went on. There was some physical sort of attacks or abuse that went on. A lot of verbal back and forth and really trying to shame people into the expected behavior. Now, I know that there has been a lot of talk about, Mary got very sick when Trump was a child, and, could that possibly be part of what affected him? And I've done a couple of readings sort of looking at those kind of areas, and I don't get that she had a huge, profound impact as he got older. In his younger life, he definitely struggled with that sense of lack of sort of maternal love and support and guidance and understanding. The bond between them was not strong, and it never became strong. And in some ways, that is where Trump actually developed this notion of treating women as pets, treating them as if they were fragile and they needed to be taken care of. And you couldn't put a lot on them because they just weren't, strong enough. And that idea, that attitude, started quite young because, of course, he was witnessing a mother who was weakened, and had, it was a difficult struggle for her to regain her strength. So it became very like, well, we need to protect you. And that attitude evolved and really went into, or goes into, the kind of behavior you see from him to this day. In many ways, neither one of his parents actually knew how to raise this child. He wasn't sort of like the other two. There was clearly something with him from a very young age that created this sort of attitude of pushback and I'm never wrong, and that whole sort of very aggressive stance that he has continued to go through his life was that the bully was born, okay? And they really didn't have a clear idea of how to correct that behavior. And you have to understand, going back literally 60 or 65 years ago, it's not like the first thing that anybody thought of was, oh, we should put this child in therapy. Okay, that just didn't happen. It was, we should put this child in military school. We should punish this child. The ways that were used, or the attitudes that were used to try to correct, were harsh and honestly not exactly helpful. So at this point, I think that if Mary, I'm going to see if Mary would like to just join us for a moment and see if there is anything that she would like to say about his behavior, especially currently. So, Mrs. Trump, if you are available, if you could please come forward and share with my viewers any insights or guidance that you would pass along so that we can perhaps get a clearer understanding, we would appreciate it. And I don't use cards for this. This is just simply energy work that you're going to see here. So, the first thing she says is that in many ways she loved him, but he was an embarrassment. He was uncontrollable. He was that child that you simply could not rein in. He couldn't be shamed. He couldn't be almost like disciplined into behavior. He just resisted every attempt to get him to conform. And so she now, from her perspective, she looks at him and she realizes that he was literally a creation of the environment that he was raised in. And for that, she has many regrets. But she also says that she sort of did the best she could for the time that she was living in. And she does not see an end to this experience, this lifetime, that is going to be a happy one for her son. He has brought too much embarrassment to the family name, to his family, and there are the karmic implications, thank you, are going to start coming back at him. And she wants you to know that it's probably going to get a lot worse than better, sooner rather than later, because as he was growing up, especially as he was like that young adult, and after, dad died and he was taking over, and there was a lot of manipulation of funds and trying to, Donald Trump spent and continues to spend like a significant part of his life, like 55 years, trying to live up to dad. And he's not capable of it because he's not built the same way. And she does what little she can do from where she is now. And she prays for her son, but fears a unpleasant end of his life. Thank you. Okay. By the way, any of you who are watching that and think that I do a lot of medium work, I do not. Don't get excited. I don't do it. I have known since yesterday that I was going to do this reading today. So there was a lot of energies that I have been pulling in and drawing close so that I might be able to access, especially her thoughts on this. So it's something I have some ability, but I don't have a huge ability. So usually for me, it's like if I'm doing a private reading and somebody really, really wants to say anything, they can come through. Other than that, I kind of very rarely go looking for them, if you will. All right, moving on. I want to take a look at Ivana. The first wife, the mother of 3 of her children. Let's see where Ivana's at these days. Because, it's an interesting thing that both Ivana and Marla have been dead silent on this. They say nothing. They say nothing. So, Ivana Trump, Ivana Trump, Ivana Trump. He was, and to some degree remains, the center of her universe. She hides his secrets. She keeps them. She was profoundly disappointed in the marriage and how it evolved and how it turned out. He was unbelievably critical of her. Her hair had to be a certain way. She had to dress a certain way. She had to weigh a certain amount. There was very little room, actually, for her to kind of evolve into herself, because it was sort of dictated to her how and when and why she should be acting and behaving. But there is a lot of sadness in her, kind of in her world, right? I mean, her relationship with her children is is, relatively okay at this point. She's not, frankly, all that pleased with them either. There's just been too much dirty dealings, too much of, again, it goes back to this whole thing about bringing embarrassment onto the family name. And she basically has been threatened. I would love to be able to say, you know what, she's been paid, but I don't actually get that. I actually get that she was sort of threatened to ensure that she kept quiet and that she didn't spill any secrets, and that anything negative that had been said in the past was retracted, including the allegation of marital rape. And this is the other really interesting thing, okay? I remember watching an interview where Trump said that the worst thing he ever did in his marriage with Ivana was, sort of give her a company to run. Because as soon as that happened, she stopped being his wife and she became his business partner. And that ultimately is what caused that marriage to deteriorate. Of course, that and the fact that he was incredibly unfaithful during the entire time they were married. The difference was, it's one thing to sort of have casual relationships, I want to say, outside of the marriage, things that don't mean anything. But with Marla, it became very obvious that it meant more, and worse, that he was going to do this in public, again, as a way of shaming and embarrassing her into compliance. I don't remember what building or part of the company she was running. I think it might have been one of the hotels, but I could be wrong. She was actually very good at it, and she was probably better at it than he was at it. She was able to see kind of big pictures in a way that he's really not able to, because he gets so hung up on details and on unimportant details. And of course, on proving that he is right and his way is best, and nobody has ever been the kind of stable genius that he has been. So there was a lot of resentment that happened in that marriage. These days, she just keeps her counsel. She stays quiet. And in her heart of hearts, in her deepest, quietest place, she actually fears for the demise of the Trump dynasty as she sees it. She sees that because of his actions now in his role as president, and make no mistake, he does see it as a role, as a TV role, not actually a duty or something he was sworn to do. It's a role. It's a performance for him. But she is very concerned that because of the behavior that is currently going on, her children's future is not going to be as safe and as privileged as it could have and frankly should have been if he had just stuck to his lane. But no, his ego demanded that he had to branch out, and now it has caused a lot of instability. It's just created a situation within the family dynamic that is a lot more stressful than she would have liked to have seen for her children. She has a fairly good relationship with her grandchildren, and she's a good grandma, and she enjoys spending time with them. But again, she is very, very guarded in what she says about him to virtually anybody. She holds those secrets and those thoughts very, very close to herself. And in some ways, she has been really surprised by the fact that he just cannot find any sort of mental balance. Basically, she is concerned for his mental and his physical health, because it's sort of like these shenanigans, this nonsense that is going on a day by day basis is, it's horrible for the country, it's horrible for the world, but it is very dangerous to him and his ego. And so she is very careful to stay very quiet. Okay, she is not going to she's not going to sort of stick her nose where it's not that it doesn't belong where she's sticking it, it's that it's likely to get chopped off if she sticks it in the wrong place. So there is very much that sense of I'm holding my thoughts to myself and keeping an incredibly low profile, because anything else is frankly probably detrimental. All right, I want to move on to Marla Maples. This was a vanity marriage as far as I'm concerned. He was getting older, and he needed that, you know, pretty young piece of candy on his arms. The biggest attraction that he had to Marla, honestly, was the fact that she was a model. And so he felt by doing that, by marrying a model, by bringing one into his life, he wouldn't have to teach her to become the woman he wanted, partly because she was trained, and partly, interestingly, because as a model, you learn how to project feelings and emotions that may not necessarily be a reflection of what you think. And so by having somebody in his corner that could do that, he saw that literally as a real benefit to his business. Marla Maples, Marla Maples, Marla Maples. It makes her sad. What has happened to the man that she married, and it doesn't appear as if she actually had blinders on. She was fairly clear on who and what she was marrying, and as far as she was concerned, it was going to be a good match because they served each other's needs. Wow, doesn't that bear striking resemblance to the marriage she has now with Melania? So she went into it fairly clear-headed, and she of course went into it with that illusion that perhaps she could change him. Perhaps, you know, her love would be the love that you know, caused him to soften in some of his behaviors. And needless to say, that didn't happen. What she did discover was that the man she had married was quite vicious, quite ruthless, and had absolutely no sort of human feelings, right? Unless they involved him, he didn't have any. He didn't care. He wasn't particularly interested one way or another when Tiffany was born. And he was quite happy to virtually ignore her and only spend enough time with her so that there could be publicity pictures of, you know, the Trumps at Christmas, that kind of nonsense, okay? So she had a really, really rude awakening when she married, and it was emotionally really hard on her. In fact, I would say devastating for her. And here is the death card again. So the death of the marriage was very hard for her. For her, it really was an emotional union, despite the fact that she had clarity and she felt that he was going to be able to provide and protect her. For her, there was a lot of emotions that went into the marriage, and she tried. And ultimately, he just simply beat her down. I mean, he just wore her out, took and took and took from her ego, from her sense of self. He viewed the marriage again as his to control. And so, you know, that's what he did. She also seems to be having some rather significant concerns about business dealings and the impact that they are having on him mentally and physically. And she also worries about what the end is going to look like when it comes for him. And it appears as if it's two ends, right? One is the end of his life, and the other one is the end of his presidency. She worked very hard at keeping him out of her life and out of Tiffany's life. When it was all said and done, she was very happy to leave New York, return to California, or go to California, and just start a new life there where his toxic behavior was not going to be a day-to-day part of Tiffany's growing up, and frankly of her own ongoing life. She worries about the secrets. There's so much that sort of is going to start bubbling to the surface. She can feel it. She knows the warning signs, right? I mean, she looks at him and she completely recognizes the behavior that happens when he is stressed and agitated. Okay, I think they're going to be quiet. So that's the story there. Hang on, she's not going to be quiet. Hang on. You know, some days I really don't quite understand why I bother to tell the dogs to be quiet. Because, you know, they're their own little people, or their own little souls, I mean. And they are just going to do what they're going to do anyways. But heaven knows I try. Okay. Let's move on to Ivanka. Ivanka Trump, Ivanka Trump, Ivanka Trump. Oh, she is the star, she is the hope, she is the promise. In her, he actually sees the same characteristics that he believes made him successful. He sees that ruthlessness in her. He sees her ability to fake emotions. He sees the level to which she is not only capable, but desirous of becoming corrupted. So she really is his shining star. Her time these days is spent looking at ways to enrich her own coffers, the family coffers. She's always on the prowl for new business deals, new business connections, new avenues to explore that is going to bring in some funds. That's what she does. She literally keeps blinders on, and she does not choose a side. That's it. It's as simple as that. She doesn't see what she doesn't want to see, and she doesn't speak out one way or the other, because not upsetting daddy, not getting him all riled up, is the foundation that she lives her life by. Everything is after what is going to upset daddy. On some level, she actually is capable of seeing the change in fortunes that are happening to the family, to her. And it's fascinating because the very qualities that Trump so admires in his daughter are going to be the very qualities that allows her to stab everybody in the back to get what she wants, to come out ahead, to win at all costs, to ride out the change in fortune. she is astute enough to recognize that there is some serious and significant deterioration going on with dad, and that it's not good. It doesn't bode well for him, and frankly, even for the family. I don't see her making any significant attempts, even privately, to try to rein him in, to express her concern, to maybe help him to look at things in a different way that might be sort of less volatile, less destructive, less embarrassing. No, she's not. She just, okay. Honestly, if I had to sum up Ivanka at this moment, this is the phrase I would use. Yep, he's as crazy as a Mad Hatter, but he gives me what I want. So is it any skin off my nose if he's a little... That's it. That's the extent of her and the way she views and looks at her father. So, what we can understand then is that Trump very much views females as an ornament, a side piece, those that are there to fulfill his needs and his wants and his desires. Kind of honestly like a good cigar. He's just entitled to it. He indulges as he wants. And it is what he believes is expected. And not only expected, but more importantly, what he believes projects the image that he most wants projected as it relates to him. He doesn't actually think that women, maybe except for Ivanka, have actually working brains. There are a few here and there that really frighten him. Hillary Clinton, of course, comes to mind. She unnerved him. Nancy Pelosi scares the bejesus out of him, okay? He just does not know how to cope with her. And he recognizes that she is the most likely instrument of his demise. And I don't think he's actually wrong. Which would be unusual, right? That Trump actually wasn't wrong about something. Wow, that's like somebody marked the date on the calendar. So it's easy to see then why he treats women the way he does. And more importantly, it's easy to see why his demise is going to be caused by female energy. Because he is completely incapable of reading the energy and the attitudes correctly. He believes, oh my God, he believes that all women should be created and behave in the mold of a good evangelical wife. And so he doesn't understand why men let their women have an attitude. Their women. He doesn't understand why a woman would think it was so insulting to be told what to do or how to behave. He doesn't get it, okay? It's just outside his realm. He views women as either beneath him, toys, a pet that needs to be protected, and on the rare occasion that terrify him. And that is going to be what brings him down. Because the force of female energy is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and he has absolutely no defense against it because it is completely outside his realm of understanding. So, hopefully you all have found this interesting and enjoyed it. I think that it gives us a little bit more insight into the women of Trump's life and his impact on them and their impact on him. So, I thank you very much for joining me. I adore and love the views and the subscriptions and the thumbs up. They mean so very much to me. So I thank you so much for that. It is Friday in my little world, and I anticipate taking Saturday and Sunday off, and will return to you on Monday. If something happens over the course of the weekend, you know I will be jumping on, and I will be available to tell you what the cards are saying from my end. So, thank you very, very much. Enjoy the weekend. And until next time, take care, be well. See you soon. Bye.